some reason. I don't know. I'm having my own existential crisis. I'm sorry. All righty. So is everybody good? Everybody up and at 'em and everything else? So who has looked at the exam? Who has looked at the quiz? Who at some point has said, you know what, I'm going to glean over it and I'm going to worry myself and everything else? It's fine if you do. I have no problem about that because, again, the reason why we have an open book, and again, one of the things that we're looking at is the outlook of, as time progresses, as your classes become more increasingly harder, one of the big things you're also going to come across is the fact that we're going to have to start timing you. And there's a reason for that. Not so much in this course, but as time progresses, you start getting into the 300 levels and the 400 levels, and there's a reason why we start timing you. A lot of people are like, oh, why? Why are you guys timing us? Why are you doing all that? The thing is, if you're going to go on and get your master's and everything else, you have to go for what's called the GRE. So the GRE is primarily going to go through and everything else, and you're going to have to, hopefully, in that time frame, gather all the information that you've received throughout the whole time you've been in school, and if you can go into master's in certain areas, you're going to be tested on that. So that's one of the things as we continue onwards, we primarily just want you to gather the information as you're going forward. So does anybody have any questions so far regarding the tests? Again, it's on chapters 1 through 4. It is available. Make sure you do take it. If you do not and you miss out, I'm sorry. That's all I can say is I'm hoping you have time. And one of the things is if you do not have time, I urge you to take time. Because if you do not, and you go forward and you're like, you know what, I don't really need that test or whatever, I don't want to take it, it's against my morals, it's against my beliefs and everything else, you literally lost out on 40 points. And that's one of the big things I'm always looking at is, again, we tried to make it as feasible as possible to you. That's the reason why we don't have it timed. But in addition to that, do take the time because, again, next week on Sunday, 11:59 p.m., it will close. And within that, I've had some students that, again, what will happen is, and I will get those emails. That's what happens. Everybody will send me an email Sunday night and say, it's not working. And I talked to other professors and everything else. I said, well, how do you guys alleviate this issue? Other professors simply say, well, they had all week. You should have carved out time. You should have done something. You should not have waited until the last given day. Because again, it's one of those things, how many have ever been in that situation, you're running late for class and everything else, and everything is going wrong? Again, that's what happens. Internet is not working, everything else. All of a sudden, Blackboard is not working. One of the big things, we try to make sure that it's available to you, because again, you have a whole week to not so much prepare. Again, you should have already been reading the book and everything else, but as you're going along, I'm hoping that you're able to answer the questions as fruitfully as possible. Because again, it is multiple choice. Within that, let's see what else. It primarily is just 40 questions. Just 40 simple questions. I took the exam, or the quiz, or the test, or whatever you call it. I passed it, and I was like, yes, that is awesome. Man, I got this down. But then again, I did create the test itself, so that's the reason why I passed it. But it's one of those things where I wanted to make sure that we're testing on all these different areas. As time progresses, what's going to change is the format of the quizzes. So the next quiz, it's worth how many points? How many now? From how much? It's not going to be 40. From here on out, it's going to be just primarily, it's only going to be 10 points. Because each week I'll be testing, I believe it's 10 points. Double check on your syllabus. I believe it's 10 points. Because that's literally my Bible in terms of that. The syllabus is what I have to follow. Because if not, it's a binding agreement between me and you. But one of the things is, if you notice, it just simply says 10 points. It doesn't say 10 questions. It doesn't say 10 this or 10 that. It just simply says 10 points. What I tend to do as time progresses is I start to break them up. I start to break up all the questions into smaller point systems. And that's the reason why, as time progresses, it gets a little bit harder. Because I want to see what you know. So as time progresses, it goes down to, I split it up. You have 1 point apiece, then it drops down to 75 points, it drops down all the way down into 50 points, it drops all the way down into 25.25 points, and it just starts breaking. I know, it's one of those things. So if you read it, it just simply says 10. Yes, okay, oh, wow. Okay, it's worth 30 points. Yay! Thank you. Alrighty. I know, everybody's like, oh my gosh, why did shit? It's okay, it's fine. But as time progresses, one of the big things is it will start to shift. That's where I'm starting to look at what things you know, what things are sinking in. The reason why is Blackboard keeps a record of all those things, all your tests, and it sees and it shows what fluctuations there are. What areas that I'm missing, what areas that I'm not teaching enough of. So then when I teach this class again, I'll be able to have a running record of saying, okay, I need to focus on this more, I need to pull back on this one, and that's primarily all I'm doing. Because again, it's primarily for our records. Does anybody have any questions regarding that? Anybody on that side? Everybody good? Everybody awesome? I think we have some individuals who are still who are new. I don't know. If you are, awesome. Some of you guys are possibly from the online class. That's fine. One of the big things is as time progresses, it's one of those things where it's not really for me. It's not, honestly, it's one of those things. I'm not saying I could care less. It's just one of those things. If you're here, awesome. And again, if you're not, thank you for letting me know. But it's one of those things where it's just for my own records that I just keep that system going. But other than that, I encourage you to be here because again, within the lectures, there's things that I'll pull from my own lectures. It's just clicking without even me doing anything. So it's one of those things where within my lectures, at times, I will pull things from what I say and I will put it into the quiz. So if you're not here, I'm sorry. Again, I also post these on YouTube. So within that, it is available. There are little links that if you click on 240, it's primarily there. So again, you're going to spend probably about 2.5 hours watching this whole video, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. So now, what am I looking at? Hold on. Something's going on with my toy.
Did anybody else have to log in to like YouTube to watch the video?
Really?
Yeah, it says like your age.
Oh yes. The reason why I had to put an age requirement on it. There's a reason. Because a lot of the information, that's one of the things is when we post these videos on YouTube, there are requirements from the child aspect, child protective laws. So within that, we cannot just simply put it up there. We have to make sure that you are of legal age so that you're able to watch them. It's one of those things because one, if a child comes along and says, ooh, that's Mr. Barber, and I'm going to click on that. And say, for example, I taught them at one time or I counseled them at one time, and then they're sitting there like, oh my gosh, those are like ewy bits. Ew, stuff like that. That's what happens. That's the reason why we had to make sure that that was on there. I know it's a little bit of a hassle, but again, it is there. And you can kind of speed through too if you want to, and that's fine. I'm not gonna. So now, what do we infer from what we see? So what does that mean? What do we infer from what we see? Why are each of you taking human growth and development? Just because it's part of your prerequisites or it's part of your required classes? Pretty much. You're like, I really could care less. So what do we infer from what we see? So say, for example, you see a child and we start putting labels to all the different children. What happens? What do you think happens? What do you think would happen if we start labeling all children in regards to ailments and everything else? What do you think would happen?
We would treat them differently.
We would treat them differently, right? And that's one of the concerns that we've come across. within the field of psychology, within the field of child psychology, within the area of the medical field, if we label a child, say for example with ADHD, or with obsessive compulsive disorders, or all these different things, or even with post-traumatic stress disorder, the fear is that when we label them, it can, and they can be viewed differently, not only from their teachers, as well as their own parents, as well as their own peers. And within that, that's one of the concerns that we have overall. So now, come on. Hold on. It's not doing what I need to do. All right. Why do we infer? In other words, why do we look into things? Why do we look into the areas that we're looking into? Why is the reason? And offer help to those in need. What's the reason? Why do we want to help people? Why is one reason why you want to help people? Why do you want to help people? Makes you feel good.
It's humane.
It's humane. Why is it humane?
This is what we do.
Why?
I guess because you could not watch somebody like struggle in a difficult situation.
I could literally sit there and be like, you know what? That's not my family. I could care less. Well, fine. Why do we help people? Why do you want to help
them
people?
to have better lives.
You want them to have better lives than you? That's selfish.
To understand?
What's that? I can barely hear you.
Because we were conditioned to be that way by our values that our parents passed down to us.
Not all.
Well, most that care.
Okay.
Right.
So a lot of you are going into the field of public health, a lot of you guys are going into the field of counseling, and you want to help people. So how many have ever how many like going into Walmart at the first of the month? How many just hate it? Why? Those are the people that we're going to help, right? Right? That's the position, that's the outlook. We're going to help people regardless of who they are, their social class, their outlooks on life, everything. Those are the people we're supposed to help.
And help that whole group at once.
But we're not going to, right? And that's one of our positions and that's the reason why I'm asking you, because one, when you go out into the field, this is the thing that's going to hit you. Reality. So when you get out into the field, one of the big things is you're going to come to a realization of, am I making a difference in somebody's life? You're going to start to doubt that. That's the reality. That's truth. How many have ever been in that situation, you're helping somebody, and they take it, but at the same time, they don't say thank you? How does it make you feel? Are you proud of that? Are you like, you know what? It's all right. It's okay. That's awesome. You know, I already feel appreciated already. How many are willing to do that? How many are willing to say, you know what? It's fine that you walk all over me, and I'm okay with that. No, because our values teach us otherwise as well, too, right? Our values says we're supposed to what? Value ourselves. And that's one of the positions that I'm always taking is, why do you want to help others? What's that? I can barely, who's talking? Which campus? Okay. Oh, it's outside. Somebody's talking, okay. So that's one of the things I'm always asking is, why do you want to help somebody? Because as you're going along, you're going to hit different discouragements. And that's the reality. Especially when you're working with kids. You're going to come across these different truths. So for you, I want you to solidify that in your life. Because as you're going along, how many have ever come across your own trauma and you see it in yourself, but you see it in another person? How does that feel?
Makes you want to help that person
It does, right?
because you weren't doing it before.
Yeah. But how many have ever gone farther than that and ended up causing what's called countertransference? I know, today's class is literally about we're talking about philosophy. That's what we're going to be talking about the whole time. No. Because it's one of those things where as you're going along, you're going to come across people that, yes, they do need help. But what if you yourself are in that situation of being burnt out? And I go through my 111 classes, and that's what we talked about at given points, about burnout rates. But as we're going forward, I want you to be able to solidify in your mind to be able, yes,
I have a question for you.
yes,
Okay, I have a situation too where, like, I'm in this exact same situation where, like, I won't have it at my house no more, like, extracurricular activities.
Mhm.
So I had to, like, get mad at my little, well, I call him he's my uncle, but I call him like my little brother because he acts like my little brother. And, but he goes to commodities and he gets his, there's like, there's a whole different, whole different scene.
Yeah.
It's like, it's different.
Yeah.
You got it? So he goes over there, he does what he does, and then like I have to, take care of the bench, chop the wood, take care of grandma, and then my grandma has to like let him do his thing, and then I have to get after him. He makes me out to be the big bad guy by chasing him out. And he's like, it's just saying like it's my fault. I'm like, all right, if it's my fault, then, but I have to use the restroom. I'm the one going in there. I don't want to smell that. It smells like burnt plastic.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna smell that. Like no. So and then after that, it causes a lot of attention. Now I got a lot of attention on me. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of eyes are watching me. So it's it's different.
yeah,
So if you're gonna take a stand, you better be strong.
yeah,
You better have a good heart, because if you're burned out, you burn out.
yeah. And that's one of the things I'm always looking at is the aspect of when you're going into this field, if you're going into any field where you're going to be helping somebody, you have to make sure that you yourself have healthy coping mechanisms. Because as you're going along, you're going to see different things. You're going to come across different things. You're going to come across different families. You're going to come across at times where individuals are looking at you and saying, I want your help. Help them. And you're like, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm all these different things. But then you have to re-solidify in your mind and say, okay, why did I get into this field in the first place? Again, it comes down to who? You. Yourself. Because one of the big things as you're going along, you're going to come across numerous individuals. And that's one of the, I love working with kids. It's amazing. I love it. It's awesome. But there are times where you have families that are looking at you thinking, you think you're better than me. Why? Why do you think they would think that you're better than them? Because we have an example, right? What was your name?
Oh, Isaiah, me?
Isaiah. So he gave a prime example, right? He was trying to help his uncle, but in the end, what happens? He's still pitted as the bad guy. So that's one of the things you have to make peace with in terms of what you're doing. You're helping an individual, but as you're helping them, you also have to understand that they may not like you. So what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at all the different aspects. So here you have primarily the growth aspect. So you have little kids, they're there, everything else, and then they fall in love, and then everything happens. All of a sudden they have a little brief time period together right in here, and then they start getting older, and then what happens? One loses their life, and then So when that happens, when you're looking at it, you're thinking, okay, my job is to make sure I am able to offer and be that present help no matter what. But at the same time, you're also looking at the aspect of, one, am I also able to keep myself safe? And that's what we look at. We look at what's called vicarious trauma. So vicarious trauma, who knows what vicarious trauma is? So vicarious trauma is trauma where you, say for example, as a counselor or public health field, or you're working in these different fields, and you're listening to the stories, and you start to share their pain. You start to pull on that pain onto yourself. You begin to incorporate it into your own life. So what happens is, and I'll give an example. Say for example for me, as I'm going along, I'm listening to all these different stories of people. I'm trying to help them here and there. I'm trying to help them here, 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 and here, and here. But at some point, you know what? I start to look at everything. I'm starting to think, you know what? I'm helping these people. They're not grateful. Ah, it's horrible. Man, they're just not grateful. But then I also start to say, you know what? And I take that same pain where? Where do I take it? At the end of the day, where would I take it? Home. I take it home. So when I take it home, what happens? I start to take it out on who?
Family suffers.
Your family. Yes, your family. Your family begins to suffer. And that's one of the things I'm always trying to prevent. And that's one of the things, if you're going to all these different fields, you have to begin to learn to gauge you yourself. Because one of the things is, if you have not healed from a given past trauma, what's going to happen is you're going to unleash that on who? Another person, a child that you're trying to help. A person that you're trying to help along the way. So now today we're going to be looking at growth and nutrition. So as time progresses, one of the big things is we have the patterns of growth. So within the first 3 years, what happens? They pretty much grow pretty fast. This rapid growth rate tapers off during the second and third year. By 5 months, the average baby boy has doubled his birth weight. And within a year, it will triple. So now, we look at these different things. We look at that boy's height will typically increase by 10 inches in the first year. And so when you're looking at your children, you're looking at your own kids, you begin to see these different patterns. You begin to notice all of this happening. You're saying, okay, all of this is changing rapidly. So that's one of the things I'm starting to help you better gauge. Because one of the big tools that all individuals that work in the counseling field, we utilize a lot of our eyes and all our senses. Because we're trying to observe everything. We're trying to capture everything. We're trying to capture as much as we can to better assist the parent, to better assist the individual as you're going along. Because again, are most parents going to tell you everything about their home life? That's why I love kids. Because one of those things, when I worked in the counseling field, it's one of those areas where they will tell you everything about their whole life. It's awesome. Doesn't matter. They have no filter. They're like, oh my gosh, this is where we are. We were at the casino till 3 in the morning. It's like, oh wow. And it's like, is that healthy for your baby? Who told you we were at the casino? Your child. And they look right at them, they're like, hot tea? Why? And it's like, oh, your child is growing. You should not have them out and about. They're literally growing. But as time progresses, what happens with the teeth? I know I'm kind of like all over the place in different areas. But one of the big things, I know everybody's like, what is it? Where he's jumping on all these different tangents. I know. I'm sorry. But one of the things is, I'm trying to help you become more observant in all situations. When you're working with a child, when you're working with individuals, or you're working with an adult, you're learning to key in on observation. Because that's going to be your greatest tool when you're out in the field. So now, growth and nutrition. So if you look up here, it says in the womb, after they are born, and after they're born, children develop from head to where? The tail. So this is cephalocaudally. And then from the inside where? Out. It'd be unique if we grew on the outside in, but we don't. We grow from inside out. So this is proxima distally. The head and the brain are the largest thing about a developing fetus and a newborn. That's the reason why we try to make sure that what is supported at all times. The neck. And this is one of my biggest pet peeves. It's one of those things is, I don't know if you've ever had kids or if you've seen people with kids. What do they like to do? They throw them up. And I'm thinking, don't do that. They're important.